Something massive is shifting, and almost no one in mainstream media is talking about it. For decades, the United States was seen as the ultimate destination, the land of dreams, freedom, and luxury shopping. But now, that reputation is crumbling. One by one, powerful countries are pulling back, canceling trips, slashing travel budgets, and actively warning their citizens to reconsider visiting America. According to the latest data, international travel to the US is collapsing. Bookings are down, flights are empty, billions of dollars in tourism revenue are vanishing. From rising anti-American sentiment to choking visa rules and runaway costs, the reasons behind this global pullback are stunning and deeply political. How do we get here? Who's leaving and why? More importantly, is this a temporary dip or the beginning of a permanent decline in America's global appeal? We're counting down the 10 countries that are actively pulling back from US travel based on latest data. And trust us, what's happening now could shake the US tourism economy to its core.
Number 10.
Brazil. It might surprise you, but Brazil, a nation that once sent over 2 million visitors annually to the US, is dramatically scaling back. According to data from the Brazilian Institute of Geography and Statistics, there's been a staggering 26% decline in US bound travel from Brazil between 2023 and 2025. That's not a dip, that's a drop-off. Inflation is part of this story. Brazil saw an 8.5% inflation rate in 2024, crushing middle-class savings and squeezing travel budgets. As the real loses ground against the US, even affluent Brazilians are finding American vacations prohibitively expensive. $10 used to get you a week in Miami. Now, it might barely cover 3 nights. Brazilians are reporting wait times of over 400 days for a US tourist visa appointment in major cities. Combine that with shifting political tides in both countries plus anti-Latin American sentiment bubbling under the surface in US discourse, and you have a recipe for disillusionment. Brazil isn't just staying home, it's going elsewhere, investing in Argentina, Uruguay, and even Europe for its leisure travel. If America doesn't correct this course, it risks permanently losing one of its most loyal tourist markets. Number 9. South Korea. South Korea has long had a fascination with American culture, Hollywood, Harvard, Hawaii. But that dynamic is beginning to fracture. Between the year 2023 and 2025, US bound travel from South Korea fell by 19%, according to figures from both Korean government sources and major travel agencies. Why the sudden shift? First, currency instability. The Korean won has fluctuated wildly against the dollar, making travel budgeting risky and US trips significantly more expensive. Secondly, entry to the US is no longer smooth. Even for South Koreans who typically qualify for the Visa Waiver Program U.S. Customs and Border Protection has intensified screenings, often holding passengers for hours with little justification. This erosion of trust has triggered a massive pivot. Koreans are now favoring nearby destinations like Japan, Thailand, and Australia, which offer streamlined visa processes and favorable currency exchanges. In short, why go through the hassle of America when Asia is wide open? The US once symbolized aspiration. Today, for many South Koreans, it represents bureaucracy and unpredictability. Number 8. Japan. Japan isn't just pulling back from US travel, it's redirecting entirely. According to the Japanese Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport, and Tourism, travel to the US dropped 21% from 2024 to 2025. The trigger? A brutal 10% depreciation of the yen against the US dollar. For a country that prizes financial caution and long-term planning, this currency shift was devastating. A family trip to Los Angeles that once cost $5 now flirts with $7. That's an economic red flag for middle-class Japanese travelers. Combine that with Japan's booming domestic tourism campaign, Rediscover Nippon, and suddenly America is off the itinerary. There's also a cultural recalibration happening. Post-COVID, the Japanese government has been aggressively promoting regional integration with Southeast Asia and Oceania. Tokyo's partnerships with Singapore and Sydney have opened new corridors that bypass the US entirely. Once a top 5 contributor to US tourism, Japan is now investing its tourism dollars elsewhere. And unless there's a significant reversal in currency exchange or diplomatic incentives, this decline could become permanent. Number 7. India. India's travel growth was once unstoppable. Its booming middle class saw the US as a natural destination for education, leisure, and family ties. But in 2025, that dream is slowing dramatically. Data shows that air travel from India to the US dropped by 28% between 2023 and 2025. Rising visa rejections, higher scrutiny for student travelers, and increasing suspicion around tech professionals have all eroded trust in the American system. Add to that a sharp rise in US travel taxis, especially on long haul flights, and suddenly even well off Indian families are reconsidering. While India's GDP growth remains modest at 5.2%, everyday Indians are feeling the pinch of domestic inflation and rising education costs. The result? Travel budgets are shrinking, and US trips are falling off the priority list. India isn't just pulling back, it's diverting. Countries like Canada, Australia, and the UAE are now the top choices. If Washington isn't careful, it may lose one of the world's most dynamic outbound travel markets for good. Number 6. China. Here's the shocker. China's outbound travel to the US has cratered by 40% in just 2 years. The numbers, confirmed by the International Air Transport Association, paint a bleak picture. And this isn't just about economics, it's about a Cold War brewing in plain sight. Trade wars, surveillance accusations, Taiwan tension sits, all pushing Chinese citizens away from the US. The result? Visa issuance is down, flight routes have been cut, and even business delegations are turning to Europe and Southeast Asia. Economically, China's consumer sector is cautious. Even with an average inflation rate of 3.7%, many are saving, not spending. Why gamble thousands on a US trip when tensions could spike overnight? Why risk being detained at immigration or questioned at customs? The US may no longer be seen as the land of opportunity for Chinese travelers. It's now a geopolitical risk hand. That's the most dangerous branding a country can have. Number 5. Turkey. Turkey's retreat from US travel isn't just economic, it's ideological. Between 2023 and 2025, Turkish outbound travel to the US declined by 31%, according to data from the Turkish Ministry of Culture and Tourism. The reasons go far beyond airfare. Turkey's President Erdogan has taken a more nationalist stance, calling out the US for what he describes as imperialist overreach and accusing Washington of meddling in Middle Eastern affairs. This rhetoric has seeped into the public. Turkish media increasingly frames the US as unsafe, chaotic, and disrespectful of Muslim travelers. In 2024, a viral incident involving Turkish tourists being harassed at a US airport ignited a firestorm. Hashtags like #BoycottUSA trended for weeks. This wasn't a fringe response. It reflected a growing national consensus. America is no longer worth the hassle or humiliation. Meanwhile, Turkey's own tourism sector is booming. With Gulf visitors and Russian tourists pouring in, Ankara has pivoted to regional travel dominance. Why spend in Los Angeles when Istanbul offers luxury, history, and pride without the politics? Number 4. South Africa. South Africa's elite once saw the US as a cultural and medical destination, but now, travel agencies report a 35% drop in American-bound bookings in just 2 years. And the reasons are striking. First, the US has earned a reputation among South Africans as unsafe. Multiple high-profile incidents involving gun violence, especially school shootings, have made headlines in South African news. In 2024, the South African government even issued a Level 2 travel warning, advising caution for citizens visiting major US cities. Second, visa hurdles have reached absurd levels. South Africans now face wait times of 8 to 12 months for tourist visa interviews. Combine that with sky-high airfares up 22% in 2025 alone due to limited routes, and the message is clear. America is a logistical nightmare. Ironically, South Africa's domestic tourism is thriving. Cape Town and Durban are attracting international money, and many locals now choose intra-African travel. Nigeria, Kenya, Egypt over the bureaucratic obstacle course of flying to the US. Number 3, Russia. Officially, Russia hasn't banned travel to the US, but the numbers say otherwise. Russian travel to the United States has plummeted by 82% since 2022, according to IATA and Russian outbound travel data. And it's not just flight sites financial, political, and personal. After the invasion of Ukraine, the US government imposed sweeping sanctions. Russian airlines were banned. US visa processing was virtually frozen. MasterCard and Visa stopped working for Russian-issued cards. For most Russians, even attempting to visit the US is impossible. But beyond that, Russian state media has framed the US as hostile and unsafe. Stories of Russian tourists being detained, questioned, or denied entry have fueled a perception that America is not just closed, but actively dangerous. So Russians aren't pushing back, they're moving on. Turkey, Thailand, the UAE, and Central Asia have replaced New York and Vegas. And with Putin doubling down on Eurasianism, there's little political will to rebuild the bridge anytime soon. Number 2, Saudi Arabia. Here's a country that once flooded Beverly Hills with shoppers and packed Disney resorts in Orlando. But between 2023 and 2025, Saudi Arabian tourism to the US dropped by 44%, a staggering fall for such a wealthy outbound market. Why? One word: diversification. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is repositioning the kingdom. Through Vision 2030, Saudi Arabia is investing billions to make itself a global tourist destination from Neom to the Red Sea resorts. Instead of spending billions on US soil, they now want that capital to stay in the region. Add to that the quiet resentment over how Arab travelers are treated in US airports. Many Saudis report profiling, aggressive questioning, and even detainment, all of which contrasts with the red carpet treatment they receive in Europe or East Asia. Meanwhile, Riyadh is forming deeper ties with China, Russia, and BRICS. American soft power, once dominant, is being replaced by strategic regional alignment. Saudis aren't just skipping US vacations, they're canceling the US from their cultural radar. Number 1, Mexico. It's hard to believe, but even Mexico, America's next-door neighbor and top tourist contributor, is pulling back. According to US Customs and Border Protection, Mexican land and air entries into the US have declined by 38% since 2023. What happened? Start with anti-immigrant rhetoric. US politicians continue to use Mexico as a scapegoat for everything from drug trafficking to labor woes. These messages, amplified by cable news, aren't lost on Mexican citizens. Many feel insulted, unwanted, and stereotyped. On top of that, inflation and exchange rates have made cross-border shopping less attractive. A tank of gas, a meal, or a Target run that used to be cheap is now almost equivalent in price without the indignity of a border check. Even elite travelers from Mexico City and Guadalajara are shifting to Canada, Spain, and South America for their luxury getaways. The emotional ties that once linked Mexico and the US are fraying. If that connection dies, it won't just hurt border towns, it'll cripple US tourism entirely. What we're witnessing isn't a fluke. It's not a post-pandemic blip or a temporary dip. This is a global geopolitical realignment, and the US is losing the travel war. In the span of just 2 years, millions of travelers from powerhouse nations, China, India, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, Mexico have stopped showing up. Not because they can't afford to, but because they don't feel welcome, respected, or safe. They're tired of visas, walls, suspicion, and policies that say, "We don't want you." The world is watching and walking away. And here's the kicker. These travelers aren't coming back unless something changes. This isn't just about vacation sites, about America's global image, about diplomacy, economics, and culture. When people stop visiting, they stop understanding. And when they stop understanding, distrust takes root. America may still think it's the most desirable destination on earth, but 10 major countries just gave us a reality check, and it's time we listened.